the director, Antonella Di Nocera, the producer, and Francesca Sofia Allegra, the editor, or Elvira Notari, Beyond Silence. So, just give me 2 seconds to start my iPad, and I'd like to start with the producer, Antonella, because I want to know how much important it's been for you as a producer, but also as Napolitan, to come across Elvira and the story. How did the project come about? How difficult was it to make it? That we know that in Italy it's quite difficult to make a documentary, so tell us everything.
Yes, try to make it brief. I want to thank, meanwhile, you for being here today and Dochouse for hosting us. It's a real privilege, and we're very happy of this screening here. My encounter with Elvira was a long time ago, since I was a student at university in the 90s in Napoli. At that time, Giuliana Bruno, the professor you see in the film, had just gone to the United States to research in Harvard, and then she wrote the book, which also is a source of inspiration for our film. So I knew her since then. As an enigma, a strange character which nobody knows a lot about, very fascinating. But since then I didn't study her, and she came back to my life when I received, more than anything, when I received this phone call from Cinecittà. They were meeting Valerio in Rome 3 years ago, more than 3 years and a half ago, and I'd done a couple of documentaries with Cinecittà, and they said that I could be the right person to work on this project as being the Italian side of it, because this project had an American side, which was the desire by Valerio to make a movie about Elvira Notari. So along the Parallel 41st, which is also the name of my company, which I founded in 2002, next year will be 25 years actually, we encounter along this line, wonderful line between Napoli and New York, which is the same line that Elvira's film traveled at that time. And it means a lot to me because adding to the historical and artistic value of giving back a voice to a woman which was cancelled by history, but who actually wants to talk with her films. That's what we try to do with the film, and I think Valerio succeeded in the way in which her film, her cinema, are the voice through which she speaks to us as a contemporary. And as I was saying, the other important motivation has also become almost political, in terms that giving a voice back to a woman was symbolic about many women nowadays who maybe scream somewhere and are not heard by anyone. So it's like Elvira speaking after 100 years is making us think about what is important nowadays to be part of.
Valerio, well, as we said, Elvira was a pioneer of cinema in many ways, as you have seen from the screening. But looking back at what has survived of her incredible body of work, the thing that is most incredible is her style and her technique that was incredibly modern for the time. And what brought you to engage with a filmmaker from a century ago, both artistically and personally?
Right. Yeah, I was attracted. Sorry. What attracted me was really her films. I discovered her in New York. I have no idea who she was until 3-4 years ago, really, when I encountered her name doing some research that I did on Italian-American spectatorship. So I was really interested in learning what Italian immigrants were watching in the 1910s, 1920s in New York. And you heard some of the historians referring to the fact that there were 20+ cinemas, movie theaters, just showing Italian cinemas. And her name showed up, and her name and Napolitan cinema, Napolitan silent cinema in general. I dived deeper, but the first things I did was watching her films, and it was spectacular, and I was mesmerized really by those images. So what attracted me to the story, the fact that she opened a branch of the company in New York, the city where I lived at the time, was pretty impressive. But also the fact that she was making those documentaries for the Italian immigrants, I think those were the two things that really resonated with me. And her mastery really in making those films that combine mise-en-scene, fiction setup, and documentary as well. As a documentary filmmaker, those images really speak to me. When she shows us the streets of Naples or the feasts, religious feasts, and in those same films where you'll see a character, then she will, and you'll see a scene in a house, in a room with actors, then she will bring you outside and show you the streets. This was also because she had her and her husband, Pastor they have less resource really than other big production. They could hire extra, and they could build bigger stage, right? She had to do it with less, and that's another thing that attracted me to this story. She was in a way kind of an underdog really in this movie system in the silent era, where you have big epic films made in Turin, in Rome, Cabiria, Boadis, the big epic films with a higher budget, and pretty much this small company in Naples, a mom and pop shop really, making those films with their son, with the grandma, with the nonna, working and coloring the films. I mean, it's a fascinating story, and I got struck actually. First, that I have no idea who she was, and I thought I should have known her. And also, because of those silence that surrounded her story, and I got interested more in telling her biographical story, her biography, got interested in telling the story of the rediscovery. But actually, because there is so little left of her, like you were mentioning, we pretty much have her films. That's all she left us. It's 163 minutes total if you put them together. Those 2 films, a couple of shorts, and documentary. it's very little. There are no written testimonies, there is no diaries, there are no interviews, and we use the only two pictures that you saw in the film. That Francesca can tell you more. That was the real challenge. But when we came to do the film, we understood that could possibly be just a biographical film. We wanted to be wanted to be a film about the rediscovery, about how her film speaks to the present. That's why we chose to involve all those artists, and with whom we really started a wonderful collaboration even after the film was released, and we're very happy for that. We can say that it was a community that was born out of this project, with the people that you see here, the people that work in the film, the people that we filmed, and it's a community really engaged and in showing the Notari film. Let her cinema known. It's better now than years ago. We can say our films are being seen and multiplied. We're happy when our film is accompanied by a screening of one of our films. This happened a lot, actually. We have one screening in Bristol, for example, yesterday, and they asked us to show a film of Elvira Notari on Saturday, and this is just the most recent example, but that makes us happy. That was the reason we made this film, is to make you, as audience, fall in love with this incredible director. She's the first woman director, and that's an incredible accomplishment, but sometimes we forget that she was an amazing director, and those films need to be seen.
What an enthusiasm. Well, Francesca Sofia, we mentioned 163 minutes remained from Elvira's production, and for the film editor, having such a little archive, of course, it's even more complicated. But the editor plays a fundamental role in making a documentary. And can you tell us something about the process you follow? If you have a particular method in your job, and how you work with Valerio and Antonella to achieve the final result?
So first of all, I really want to thank them because they gave me the chance to actually discover Elvira, which for me is not just the first Italian female director, but it's also the first female working class director in the history of cinema, probably. So this is another layer to see it. Yeah, so for me, I have a method, but it's quite complicated to share it like in this moment. But what I can tell is that every film is different, and every film needs different methods. And here, we don't have anything. I mean, we had a lot of, I'm an expert now of, Napolitan silent film or of Giordano Bruno's book, but I can't tell that I'm an expert of Elvira, because no one can be an expert of Elvira because of the silence. So we had to work a lot, considering the silence a main character of the film, and this was of course very complicated in terms of how we work around this silence. And what we decided to do was to give me a space alone for 4-6 weeks, so that I can actually find a way to structure the film with so little topics, so little elements that we had. And after these 4-6 weeks, we started a structure together. And it was quite complicated at the beginning because we had different time zones and we worked from different countries with different time zones. So sometimes Valerio's night was my morning and Valerio's afternoon was my night. So we had to work even 18 hours or 20 hours a day to be in touch for as long as was needed, especially at the ending of the process. But then I went to New York, Valerio came to London, and everything kind of this distance became part of the journey of the process. In a way, we traveled as Elvira's movie. So it was very, very interesting to work on this project.
Of course, we would be delighted if you have questions, and raise your hand if you have it. Okay, one over there.
Yes, I saw, I think it was a Santa Notte last month at the Italian Institute. Yeah, and...
performing.
Yes. And I knew a little bit about the Elvira Notari from film, books about female filmmakers, but obviously there was very little about her because no one knows much about her anyway. I just have a question, which is because some of my friends didn't have the opportunity to come today. Basically, is there a distribution, even if it's like a video distribution, which like Amazon Prime or something, so that they might be able to enjoy this documentary?
Well,
Antonella, I guess this is your call.
Well, we have been touring in the United States we had several events in New York and Los Angeles, some universities, and we're doing the same sort of tour with both some venues like here or academic venues to also promote the film, and this is something which is very important in terms of spread of mouth of what is the film and what it can represent also for different audiences. In Italy we have a distributor which is Cinecittà, and we have a tour in Italy. In the future we'll have, of course, platform for the film to be shown, but I really hope in myself that these tours and these events will create more of an interest to have a distribution in some countries in Europe, or maybe we're still struggling for that. I don't think we'll just let it go in platform. We'll try more to have more events. We have a new events in London, an active event in London on Friday nearby, which is actually sold out.
Yeah.
say that. But we are open to promote the film in any way, and of course, any venues or encounters are welcome to screen the films.
I know that Epitrail was screened, I don't know, a few years ago, quite, several years ago maybe, at a cinema in London, in North London, the Everyman Cinema. So obviously there is a little bit of a distribution.
Those films, actually, Elvira's films are now following a movement, which we were also talking about before, concerning Elvira new knowledge and discovery. Cineteca Nazionale has just released a DVD Blu-ray with their films. The only film missing are the fragments, the colored fragments which you see in the film. They are from Cineteca di Bologna, and those films are with the music, and most of the music are from the musician of our film. So it's a combination of new things happening, also coming from this process of new discovery of Elvira. And in Italy last year, we promote the National Committee for the 150th anniversary of Elvira, and so there are several scholars in this committee, and we are promoting her films to be seen. That's what we really like to happen. Audience to see directly, like in the big screening room you saw at the end of the film. That's the Cinema Modernissimo in Napoli last year, exactly on Elvira's birthday, the 10th of February 2025. She was 150, and we celebrated having the mayor giving an honorary plate to her grandson, and it was a great civic celebration to give back the memory she had. It was lost in time.
There are a few film festivals in Salerno as well, by the way. And I don't know I think there are in Italy, maybe Bologna or something, silent movies festivals.
Yeah,
so,
Cinema Ritrovato and
yes.
Pordenone.
Yes.
Yeah, we hope to continue this journey.
More questions from the audience over here in the second row?
I was just curious about the film in the film. So did you discover the film that was being made as a serendipity as you were making the film, or was that,
Which one?
well, the dramatization of the life? Or it's
The story with Teresa.
Yes, Christina, we met doing this project. So in the beginning, when we started the project, we envisioned a film that will just have archive and will have historians and will have nothing shot in present day. And then I think it was really like mid-production. After we secured all this, that was the most important thing, securing all these films by Elvira. That was not the simplest things, but we convinced Cineteca Nazionale of our good intention, and Cineteca di Bologna as well. So eventually everybody was so generous to share, even the historians. Everybody was incredibly generous. Almost, it felt they were ready to finally kind of share this work. So in the beginning, we were just working on that idea of film, more and more just archival-based films with historians, talking heads. And then, it was mid-production. I remember that we realized that we were not alone, really, that there were so many people. Just by doing like a simple research on Google, that you can see there are theater plays, photographic projects, there are painters, also sculptors. Everybody seems to be inspired by the legacy of Elvira Notari, not just her cinema, her story, and the mystery as well, the things that we don't know much about it. That kind of sparks some fascination, help us imagine something that perhaps is not there, but perhaps speaks to us. And so we thought that was important, and it would, and that allowed us really to show how our films really is a legacy that speaks to us. It's a memory that is still alive. And I remember with Christina in particular, it was somebody that came to a screening of one of my previous films, and somebody in the audience asked me what you're working on, and I say yes. I'm struggling with starting with this film on Elvira Notari, but that's what I'm working on. And somebody came to me after a screening like this, said, I have to put you in touch with a friend of mine. She's a photographer. She had this dream of making a photographic project. And I remember reaching out after a month, after a few weeks, really. I almost forgot about it at first. Then I reached out, and we connected, and it started a collaboration. Almost felt like the two projects went hand in hand. But she does her home project, of course. But it allowed us to have perhaps some emotions that we were lucky to have somebody that embodied Elvira, since we have so little. And of course, we have the privilege to work with incredible photography, costume design. It was incredible. So with her, we know that we didn't want to do a simple reenactment, but it allowed us to play a little bit of a trick, especially in the beginning when you see Elvira, a mysterious presence, and then we reveal that it's actually a photographic stage. And as well, Francesca, it's another collaboration that we really wanted, and we know that she was working on something on Elvira Notari. She had already previously made a project in Milan about Elvira Notari, and we actually, in that case, Antonella helped make the connection with the workshop in Ponticelli, that is a town really close to Naples, where it's Naples.
It's a suburb, big
suburbs of Naples, and that's where Antonella lives. And so that's just another way that the documentary almost acted as a catalyst for things to happen. And
it's like some sparkles that are inside, and they become flame when there is a dramaturgy which grows upon those sparks. Because also, Christina wanted, she didn't have already an actress for her photography project, and I suggest Teresa, but they didn't know each other, and I knew Teresa, but between them, it was just a love. Totally.
Yeah.
You know, it was something which could happen and could not happen. They they discovered to live very close to each other. They started walking the dog together, and the project became strong emotionally, also because of their friendship. When I remember when Christina came to Napoli to do some location scouting for the photography, she had in mind someone, and the coincidence is that was Teresa, and then you know she had somebody. A face, the body, and it corresponded.
We can say it's the spirit of Elvira. Sometimes we refer to the spirit of Elvira Notari. That almost
Spirit of
there
Elvira.
makes things happen.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, Teresa Saponangelo is one of the greatest Italian actresses, and she's the favorite one of Antonio Capuano. Antonio Capuano is a film director from Naples as well, who is, as a matter of fact, the maestro of Paolo Sorrentino.
And she was in Paolo Sorrentino's film.
And she was in
Yeah,
Paolo Sorrentino's
Stata la
film,
mano di Dio.
È stata la mano di Dio, yes. And this one is a film about a woman director, but it's not about women. As a matter of fact, it's incredibly important, the awareness that this movie can give to young female directors, producers, and so on. I want to ask something to Francesca, because you are the editor of this movie, but most of the greatest editors in film history are women. Tamar Schumacher, Selivenka, and many, many others. And which is the secret? Because, of course, there must be something that you make in a different way from male editors.
I don't think that there is a secret, and to be honest, I don't even think that creativity is art is behind the genre. But what I can say maybe is that we don't. I mean, I speak for myself. I'm not afraid of making mistakes, and I'm not afraid of getting lost in material and to change, to destroy and rebuild. And this is something that I think that is part of the process of being an editor. And maybe the quality of listening and is a quality that might be more for a female. I don't know.
The quality of listening is great, Francesca.
But I don't think honestly that there is a gender. There is a matter of gender. It's more like personality and personal creativity.
And I think that kind of method is for documentary more than any other film editing, because when you are able to at the brainless of, as you say, destroy and rebuild, something which is in that world of documentary.
Yeah, I always joke on the fact that I think that documentary editors have a huge advantage comparing to fiction ones, because we have a PhD on a subject when we finish to make a movie, because of course we listen to hours and hours of material and we end up to know the topic very well, and we keep learning. So I think that this is something that is very interesting in making documentaries.
More questions from the audience over here? Maybe it's easier if no. Okay.
Thanks. It was a really beautiful film. Thank you very much for that. My question is, she seems to have stopped working with the arrival of talkies. Did she ever make a talkie film, or never? And do you think that was one of the reasons why she gave up?
One of the reasons, one of the reasons, according to historians, the change, the arrival of talkies, the arrival of sound cinema made it possible for production company Naples to continue. It was just very expensive. She needed different equipment. It's one of the reasons. Of course, it's 1930 when sounds arrived in Italy, and we are at the peak of fascism as well. 1928 is when fascism pretty much passed a law that banned all cinema made in Naples, so that had also a big effect. So that the combination of those two were probably the main reason of her retirement. Something must have happened inside the family, and it's a story that we touch upon, but we don't really give an answer. I guess it's also for the audience to figure out what happened, because there's no way of really knowing for sure what happened, because there are no proof, nothing that she has left us. But probably also some family crisis, some complex played a role as well. And so the combination, I would say, of these three goes with her retirement in 1930. We know she passed in 1946, so she spent 16 years of her life pretty much by herself. We know that her husband, the son, visited a couple of times. We know that she hasn't been in touch with the third daughter, but we know for sure that she didn't do anything to be remembered. She intentionally wanted to forget everything that she's done, what she was, and we don't know the cause of that, but that's probably why we feel so passionate, because we feel that it's an injustice that she was forgotten for so long. And, so she's getting some sort of revenge now today.
Thank you. That was very comprehensive. It's a very beautiful film, and I speak as a film professor, and I want my students to see this. I think it's an important intervention, particularly because it's also English speaking. Juliana Bruno's book was very instrumental in my own generation knowing who she was, and there has been an absolute resurgence in younger people being interested in her. But most younger people, unless they speak Italian, feel cut off from her history because it's very hard to find it. So this is very welcome. My question, so can I ask two?
You're allowed.
So one question is a point of detail, and the other question is more about the making. So the point of detail is the film implies that she abandons her daughter and puts her daughter in an orphanage, but the husband was implicated in that decision. That doesn't come over at all, which is a shame because he was implicated. And I mean, it's true that we don't know for sure the exact reasoning, but the husband's treatment and the husband's behaviour needs to be implied perhaps more heavily in her decision making, because it wasn't her decision alone. She wouldn't have been allowed to make the decision on her own. But the question I have, that was just a point of detail, but the question I had was really a question more in terms of the making of the film, because it's so comprehensive. You give a really brilliant overview, and I wondered what you had to take out or didn't include, or were there things that you wanted to include that you couldn't, because obviously a film can only be a certain length.
Well, I think this is a question from the three of you.
Those are all things that we can answer and reflect upon. No, thank you for the comments. Yeah, no, the role of the husband is not. It's crazy that the family never put it into question, right? What if that choice was made by her husband? Would it be judged the same way that she was judged? That's definitely the point that Flavia Amabile makes in her book. That she wrote is a novel, it's an historical novel, so there is some fiction, of course, but it's fiction, yes, but it's totally research, and she's a journalist as well, and she did thorough research on this. She read all the books, and she eventually even went farther and met the descendants, and that's exactly the point that she made. She probably, Elvira paid the highest price because she was supposed to be the mother, the welcoming mother, and she was supposed to take care of the kids, and yes, and that something must have happened. Like it's hard for us to also go further because there are not many elements we can, but it's definitely a reflection that stays with you.
Yeah, and also the family, like the nephews, they basically just talk about her. In the rushes, there was a specific questions about the father, but they were just, was not important if the father was involved or not. You know, it's about the mother. The mother is abandoning the child. So this part was also, of course, it was impossible to add it in the film because it was impossible to edit this part. But we asked a question, like Flavia asked a question about the father. So yeah.
Elvira's films had, in those times, before 28, of course, which are restored and saved in the Museo del Cinema library in Torino. There are lots of reviews, critics, not always talking well about Elvira's film, for being from the nationwide critics who were seeing, not fascism yet, but even before fascism, they were seeing Elvira's movies like very simplistic or too popular, too much dialect, too much, a sense of she'd seen. It was not seen as the big movies of the time, silent, epic movies. But I want to go back to the first thing you're saying, that because it's also something which it's been representing a suffering. The fact that this, to say clearly that it was also the father's responsibility, that any act of that kind is of father and mother responsibility, is something also belonging to the society of the time. It's because, of course, he had to sign himself to keep the child to the orphanage, but to the rest of the family, to the people, is always the mother abandoning the child. And you're right that the decision was made in two. But in the film, we think that this is implied by the fact that when Juliana says tells the story at the end, there is a responsibility which is given to her and not to the couple, because that's the way it happened. Also because what is clear that at one point the third daughter, who was big enough to face her mother, she didn't want to meet her, but she kept seeing her father, and we don't know why this happened.
And the brother. She just didn't see the mother. So the family blamed her for that decision, because she was the head of production as well. She wasn't, because they have to decide between work or raising her kids. And she, being the engine behind that production, she was also kept responsible, because she was not just the director, she was the producer as well. She was really the head of production. So
she was called Marescialla as being a very strong woman, which reflects an idea in which when women are doing something valuable, it's not because of their sensibility or because of their creativeness or because of their way of being, but because they are Marescialla, made like in an image which is a male image.
Yeah.
Okay, sadly our time's up, but I hope you enjoyed this short time we had together. I want to thank you, Valerio, Antonella, and Francesca Sofia, and we want to thank you, of course, for being here. Thank you. Thanks so much.